One of my favorite all-time desserts is the chocolate chip cookie. Look at these babies. These are so good, loaded with chocolate chips. And these cookies are just the way I like cookies to be, which is I like them to be chewy. I don't like them to be hard through and through. I like there to be some softness, some chew in them. So let's give this a try. I'm going to take one of these guys and break it in half. There we go. Okay. Look at all the chips in that, folks. And look how thick it is. That's a thick cookie. It's not a thin, skinny cookie. Let's give this a try. Here we go. Oh my God. This cookie is so good. You get the chocolate, it's a perfect consistency like I was talking about. This is just great. And I'm kind of strange with cookies. I don't like cookies hot, fresh out of the oven. I like the cookies to cool down. And I like the chocolate to be solid. But that's just me. That's how I like cookies. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of this cookie. And you can watch and see how to make them for yourself. Okay, so here are the ingredients you need to make these wonderful big chocolate chip cookies. First of all, you're going to need butter. And as always, it has to be butter. It has to come in a box like this. It has to say butter. It can say unsalted sweet cream butter or just unsalted butter is fine. And it comes in a stick like this and it's got to say butter. If it comes in a plastic container and you spread it, it's not butter. Even if it says it is, it's not butter. Do not use margarine. Do not ever use margarine when you are baking. Okay, so butter. You also need brown sugar. Brown sugar comes in light brown sugar, or this one's called golden brown sugar, or dark brown sugar. Either one works. You're also going to need regular sugar, regular basic sugar. You're also going to need flour, all-purpose flour. That's the basic stuff. You're going to need baking powder. And look at the bottom of the can to see if it's in date. Because if it's expired, it doesn't work anymore. So baking powder, salt, just regular basic salt, vanilla. We're going to need 1 egg, which I think is what's in there. There he is. 1 egg. Chocolate chips, real nice, good. These are Nestle Toll House chocolate chips because those are my favorite. So chocolate chips. In terms of equipment, you're going to need some parchment paper. This is the best stuff. Cookies will never stick to it. Parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you could spray the baking sheets that you're also going to need, the baking sheets. You could spray them with non-stick spray, but parchment paper is better and less messy. And you're also going to need a pot because there's some butter that needs to get melted. Alrighty, and I'm going to show you how to put this together. Okay, so we're over here at the stove top because we're going to melt this butter. So inside this big pan, I have my stick of butter. Okay, I'm going to turn my heat to kind of medium low. And we're just going to put that there. And we're going to melt that butter. Okay, it's important that you do this step, melting the butter, first. And don't do it in the microwave because we need the big pot. So melt the butter, give it time to come to room temperature. So do this step first. And you also don't want the bubble to, the butter to like come to this big boil with all kinds of bubbles. No, you just want to melt it until it's no longer solid. And I'll come back when it looks like that. Okay, so the butter is melted. It should look like that. There you go. Nice melted butter still in the saucepan. So what I'm going to add to this now, this butter is still hot and that's okay. That's all right. I'm going to add the regular sugar to it. I'm going to add the brown sugar to it. And the brown sugar, I always like to kind of crumble up as it goes in because brown sugar can have lumps. See, like that right there. There's a lump. I don't think, oh, there. Okay. Take your whisk. Whisk all that sugar into that hot melted butter. And if you do have lumps, just try to mash them out. Sometimes I kind of melt out on their own. There you go. Okay, so just leave this butter and sugar mixture to the side, okay? This is still pretty hot. It has to cool down. So I'm just gonna put this to the side while I do other things that we'll come back for. Okay, so while the butter, brown sugar, sugar mixture is cooling off in the pan, I'm gonna start thinking about my dry ingredients. So into this bowl, this medium mixing bowl, I have my flour that I've measured already, and I'm gonna add to it 1 teaspoon of baking powder. You gotta make sure you're using a teaspoon. If it says 1 TSP on the spoon, then that's a teaspoon, okay? And make certain you're not using baking soda. It's gotta be baking powder or all is lost. So I'm gonna get my teaspoon of baking powder. Level the edge, guys, level the edge so you get a perfect teaspoon of baking powder. In it goes. And then it's 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So same thing, look at your spoon. If it says 1/4 TSP, then you've got a 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, I really recommend that you don't measure the salt right over the bowl, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna over measure and the extra salt falls in there and there's nothing you can do about it. So I always just take a measuring cup or do it over the trash can and measure the salt there, because then if you have a little run over, see, like that, it's no big deal. So I'll level that off. In goes my 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just gonna give this a stir to mix in that salt and the baking powder so everything is all combined. Just like that. All right. I'll show you what the next step is next. Okay, so you remember the pot that had the butter and the sugars. Okay. Now you don't want it to be hot. So look what I'm doing. My hand is underneath the pot and it is not too warm. If it was, I would be saying ouch right now and I'd be putting it down. So the bottom of the pot is a little bit warm and that's absolutely fine. So what I'm gonna add to this, again to this, is I'm gonna add the egg. There it goes. And I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just gonna use that same teaspoon that I measured the baking powder. Make sure you measure a full teaspoon of vanilla. I'm actually gonna go a little bit more. So there's a full teaspoon. Okay, I did a little bit more, but that's because I love vanilla. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna whisk in this egg and vanilla. Just get a nice shot of that happening till everything looks nice and smooth. That's what you want. Now, if you're thinking, where's the flour mixture? It's over here. I haven't used it yet. I'm about to, but with baking, it's really, really important that you do everything in the right order and in the right way. Baking is very, very precise. Okay, we'll come back. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna now add the flour mixture to the pot. In you go. Be careful doing this so you don't lose any of that flour mixture. Get it all in there, okay. And I'm gonna use a wooden spoon to mix it in. Now, how come I'm not using the whisk still? Because the whisk is for liquidy ingredients. This is gonna get a lot thicker now because of all that flour. So stir in that flour. Stir in the flour. Just like that. And chocolate chips are gonna go in last. But here's the thing. If this mixture is too warm, when you add the chocolate chips, what's gonna happen to those chocolate chips? They're gonna melt. And then it changes the texture of your batter and you don't have chocolate chips, you have some weird pasty chocolate looking thing that's not a chocolate chip cookie. So here's my trick to determining, is this mixture cool enough to add the chocolate chips and not have them melt? Here's what you do. take a chocolate chip. Okay? Put it there. You see that? It's just sitting there. Give it a few seconds. Let it sit there for a few seconds. Okay, now look again. Now let's see. Did it melt? Just kind of move it around. Did it melt? Nope, it has not melted. So I'm going to add the rest of my chocolate chips because now it's safe in here. These guys aren't going to melt because that one little tester guy didn't melt. This recipe has a lot of chocolate chips, so I hope you like your chocolate chip cookies really filled with chocolate chips, because that's what this is. Okay. Now, if you were doing this, there's our dough. If you were doing this at home, you could definitely start shaping the cookies and getting them in the oven and baking them right now. But since we're at school, there's not enough time to do all this and do the baking. So we're going to be putting this dough into a plastic bag, and I'll show you what that step looks like in a moment. Okay, so the dough's all ready and we need to keep it in the refrigerator overnight because we're at school. So you're going to get a bag like this and you need to label it right. First of all, your period. I'm going to say we're in period 3, so just write period 3. And then also very important, what lab are you in? I'm going to say lab 2, okay? The period and the lab, because there's going to be a bunch of bags in the refrigerator by the end of the day, and if they're not identified, then I won't know what period they go to or what lab they go to, and it's a big hassle and you might not get your own bag. So I'm going to put this dough into this bag. You want to get all the dough in there. It's going to take some effort to do that. Get all that dough in there. There's more in here. And then the next thing will be, it'll be the next day in just a moment, and I'll show you how to bake these in the oven. And okay, so almost there. Okay, time to shape and bake these cookies. So I have the dough still in the bag. It's the next day, and this is a 1/4 cup measuring cup, okay? Yours won't be purple, it'll be some other color. As long as it says 1/4 cup, that's the one you want. Because we want 10 cookies and we want them to be all the same size. And if you measure them in this, when you scoop them out, then they'll all be the same size and you'll get 10. So watch what I do. I'm going to take some dough, just kind of pry some off, and gently kind of pack it into this measuring cup like this. Don't cram everything you got into there, or otherwise you'll run out of dough. Okay, so I've got this. Now I've lined my baking sheet with parchment paper. So to get this out, you can either try it into your hand. Oh, that worked. Okay, right there. Okay, so we're going to go in. We're going to get another one. Again, 1/4 cup. That's what we want. I'm not going to pack this too tight. Another way to get it out of here is just to knock it down like that. So I'm going to put 5 here. Okay, there's going to be 1, there's going to be 2, there's going to be 1 in the middle, 3, 4, and 5. That's the smart way to space them out because these guys are big. Okay, so I'm going to come back when I have 5 on here. Okay, so I have the first 5 cookies on the baking sheet. And if you look, get a bird's eye view of it if you can. It looks like a 5 when you roll the dice. This looks like 5 if you roll the die and it says 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm also going to push down slightly with my fingers like that just to give them a little nudge in spreading. Just like that. Okay. Now, before I started doing this, I preheated my oven to 350. So I'm going to get these guys in the oven, and when these guys are done, then I'm going to do the next batch of 5. So there's 10 total, okay? And we're going to let them cool a bit, and then you'll get to see what they look like. But they're going to be big, beautiful chocolate chip cookies. We're going to bake these for probably around 12 minutes. We'll have to see. You never know for cookies. You have to kind of look at them and judge whether they're ready to come out or not. But I'm going to start with 12 minutes. It might take 15. All right, I'm going to get these in the oven. We're going to see how it turns out. Okay, look at these guys. So the first batch just came out of the oven. They got bigger. They look absolutely beautiful. Let's take a look at their color on the bottom. They're still pretty hot, but I'm going to try this. You see the color on the bottom? That looks good. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let them cool right here on the baking sheet. By the way, a tip for you. Never put cookies on a hot baking sheet, like the dough balls on a hot baking sheet. It won't work. They'll start to kind of melt. I'm going to let these cool right here on the baking sheet. Right here on the baking sheet. Uh-oh, we have a special guest. You want to see who the special guest is? There she is. She's coming to see what's going on. Anyway, I will do the second batch with a different baking sheet. Not this same one, because this one is hot. But these are absolutely delicious. Makes 10 big, beautiful chocolate chip cookies. And I hope you try this at home.